Welcome to Mechs on Deck, episode 16. Today, we are doing part 2 of the great layout debate. Today, we're actually going to be debating some layouts. But first, I think both Chewy and I have a little bit of mail day to go over. What you got?
Nothing keyboards. I just found a beard hair in my keyboard.
Always.
For those who have beards, you understand the struggle. I don't actually have anything like actual keyboards, but Clavier, the puked up Panda, which is actually ironic because it's the only Yacht switch I don't have. But I didn't like that they did the tan Holy Red Panda. It was like a tan, like the hoodie looked great, but I live in Texas and I have my 3 jackets already. So, but I like the mint, and it's a pretty shirt. It's a nice one. And then this isn't a keyboard, but I replaced my mouse finally because good Lord, I was using this thing. One, it has a cable, which already makes me hate it. And two, the shape and the squishiness is just terrible. So yeah. G703, moving up in the world. 403s are dead, apparently, to me.
Getting that mouse game up, you know?
You know it. So
I have something that I received actually a couple weeks ago now, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it really. And that is the Mass Drop Holy Pandas. I got them in. Not gonna lie, when I first tried them out, I was a little bit disappointed. I know that there's been a little bit of variance between what people had. Mine were very over lubed, in my opinion. Stock lube was quite heavy. I've got an ultrasonic cleaner that I used to clean them, and now they feel so much better. They feel just as good as the different Yacht and Jesus ones. I would say they're probably a little bit different, but I'm excited to try them out versus some OG pandas and some pandas that Chewy's had for a while, just to kind of see what the differences are.
Yeah, we've got we'll have a video coming up soon. This is probably the first time and we have a backlog of videos now that we've been meaning to do. And so we're trying to catch up, and then something controversial happens and we got to sit there and complain about that. But no, I've got our friend in the Discord, Al Hex, sent me some OG pandas to compare. So I've got about 10 of these. So we're going to gonna get the Yachts, the Holy Jesus switches, the Mass Drop pandas, OG pandas, and just do a little shootout. So, and that video will be thanks to Al Hex. So thanks, bud.
Yeah, appreciate the help with that and the OG pandas, because neither of us had them. So
yep. I didn't want to spend $6 a switch.
No, definitely not.
So, but definitely anyway, so this is part 2. Real quick, we're going to basically how this is going to work. If you've known us personally, Osiris and I like to argue about everything. We once had a 3-hour argument about whether or not to use a desk mat. That can probably be screenshotted over many, many, many texts. But we like to argue. So we were like, okay, well, let's kind of we each pick a side of a particular layout and then argue it. But we will not be arguing on layouts that kind of don't compare. So we're not going to argue a 60% versus a TKL because you're going to be getting them for different reasons. We can, if you would like to see us argue about those, you can, but we just thought that kind of anything that's two stages above or below in size was not really worth arguing because that's not what people are going to be debating over. But outside of that, what's our first debate?
So our first is 40% versus 60%.
So I'm going to go hard on the 40%.
You're going to go hard on the 40%.
I am a 60% fan myself. So it's only fair, at least on this argument, that I will go on the 40%. First and foremost, we're gamers. We're both gamers. We both love gaming. Desk space, huge thing. You got that low DPI in your mouse on that wireless mouse you just got. You have that low DPI. It's impeccable how much, if you have a tiny desk, if you have a larger desk, but you want to be able to have maximum room for being able to use your mouse, or if you kind of are someone that has a lot of things going on your desk, and on those are things that are to me better than what you get. And I know that 60% has it, but if you're kind of looking to min max your available desk space, you can't beat that.
So, all right.
Opening statement.
Opening statement. All I'm saying is, if you play CS:GO, how are you going to get into your to your console? How are you gonna hit escape? You gotta hit like multiple buttons. You can't do that quick. You just want to see how much damage you did to the guy on the other team. You want to change your crosshair real quick in the middle of a CS match. You're making it harder on yourself by using a 40%. You want to switch to your knife or switch to your pistol. You got to map that somewhere else now because you don't have your numbers.
That's totally fair, but when you're sitting there, when I'm behind you and you're trying
don't tell me scroll wheel. Don't tell me scroll wheel.
When I'm behind you and I'm about to knife you and you hear me and your mouse slams into your keyboard because you're trying to turn around fast enough, I'll be laughing whenever my knife goes into your back. It doesn't have numbers, but listen, if you already got a 60%, then you're used to layers. So just memorize layers. We all use our phones use 40% layouts, or at least most of them do. So I don't see why you couldn't just get used to it. What's the old argument? Just give it a week or two, and you'll just get used to it.
I think I could see the get used to it, but I just think the efficiency versus like I think the argument for efficiency on a 40% is like it's too much. Like that's too much sacrifice for you. Like you've already cut out arrow keys, numpad, function row, and now you've cut out numbers entirely. It's a bit much. I understand their place. Personally, would never really be into it to use it as a daily driver and have that be my only layout. I know some people that do, but
let's get away from gaming real quick. Traveling, you can fit that in your pocket.
Pocket board.
Just whip that bad boy out.
You know what? Screw it. Let's just cut out everything. Let's just go to the
full macro path.
The 27. What was it called? The one that was literally just like letters and space bar.
Letters and one space bar. Yeah, that's too far.
But no, I think yes, it's great for traveling. It's great if you're like just want to type something real quick, but day-to-day layout, it's hard to use. There's a lot of sacrifice there and losing your numbers, losing the ability to do some functions that you just physically can't without having to have crazy layers that you have to go through and memorize.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and that's a very niche board. If you are using a 40% layout, there's a reason you're using a 40% layout. You have, I would not personally recommend it to someone who's going from like a full size Razer board and then going, I want to try out mechanical keyboards and go straight to a 40. You might not have the best time. But, if you're looking for something different and fun, 40% is cool. Like I've typed on a Pearl. It's unique. It's fun. It's different. But end of the day, yes, there are a lot of setbacks that you have to either get used to or just not have quick access to. It's not going to be your best gaming board. As kind of fiddling with layers, trying to fiddle with a layer mid game, that's just an extra key you have to press. So response times. And if you're working, you can get good at it, but at the end of the day, there's if you can just reach up and hit those numbers faster than having to sit there and layer, then yeah, it's tough. But no hate.
No, if that's what you like, then cool. That's what you like. If you're into it, you want to min-max the crap out of it, do it.
Absolutely. So moving on. We'll do quick at the end of each one. I'm going to choose 60 over 40.
Yeah, 60 over 40.
60 over 40. We'll do that for each. I think I'm just looking ahead at all of them. I'm seeing how different they are. I know we're going to disagree on at least two of them. So,
yeah.
So a lot. So our next up is 65 versus 75%.
Yeah. So this one's pretty close for me. This one's like probably the hardest for me personally, because I enjoy both for different reasons. And I think the reasons between the two, has nothing to do with the actual like functionality of the board, but more of like the design possibilities of like a 75%. Especially like lately, we've seen people do crazier things with 75% boards. When I say crazy, it's not like mind blowing, but there's so much.
It shoots fireworks for you.
It's just so much variance. We talked about this in the last episode where 75% is one of those ones where you can play around with the layout and make boards look completely different, but still have the same functionality. Whereas in 65%, we still see this, but not as much. We're starting to see it more. But still, I have to go with 65% just because just because the size cut down. If you're someone who games a lot like me and you like your keyboard at like a ridiculous angle like me, having that extra little bit at the top hurts. I can't tell you how many times I've run into my keyboard with my thumb on my mouse hand. But having that a little bit smaller, you're not losing out on a lot. And they're losing the function keys and your escape key, which just really shifts down. So there's not really like a huge loss. Because let's be real, you have to look down to find the function layer anyway, to find the function keys anyway, because you're not used to pressing them. So what's the difference between looking down to find the function keys and then pressing your function button on your keyboard and pressing the corresponding number? Like, there's no difference.
Yeah, fair argument. I'd say a big reason I like 75%, I'll talk about this in a minute, but aesthetically, I think 75% look way better. But to me, a 75% and a 65%, so I'm not someone that angles their keyboard crazily, and when it comes to horizontally, they are the same length. There might be a little variance with, we are starting to see certain 75% layouts with not strange because that makes it sound bad, but more creative ways of using up the space. So they're starting to be a little bit, but if we're just basing it off of kind of the 75%, kind of like the KBD 75, you're not losing any horizontal space. So at that point, if the argument in the kind of 60 versus 75 and 65 is that vertical space, that extra row, but you are losing some going up. But how often, to me and to a lot of people, I don't think that will frequently come into play. I understand there are certain special circumstances, but to me, you haven't lost much of the horizontal space, and you get added benefits aesthetically, like the mod color F keys, which to me are a huge bonus when it comes to if you like a keycap design. A lot of these keycap designs have the off-colored F5 through F8, And it really does, to me, aesthetically bring that key set all together. You do, arrow keys are there, so you can have some play with them. And it's just, I love these 75% are kind of going through this revolution right now where it doesn't have to be just a flat straight across all the way down. It can be goofy. You can put a knob on there like the Satisfaction 75. You can put, place things in different places. You can add, little extra like the F-row cutouts. So like on the Orange 75 and the Xeno, those are kind of suspended, each cluster of 4. So there's just so much design freedom in the 75% that there really isn't another layout to me that has as much design freedom as 75%.
Yeah. And that's why this one's kind of hard, because it's like you're talking about, form versus functionality in a lot of these other ones. Whereas this is the one where you have like 75 is the most creative layout right now. Like when you look at 65%, most of them, other than like one-off ones like the CA66, where it's like, all right, that's completely different. Most of them follow the same like layout. And even when they don't, like the Think 6.5, it's still technically the same layout. They just remove keys to put a badge. It's not like it's insanely different from keyboard to keyboard on the 65. You have some things where it changes. Now there are minute changes like Dixie Mech talked about last week on the keyboard design or keycap design series we're doing on Twitch. He talked about the Bauer a little bit, where like shifting some things over in order to get the win keyless blockers for the Bauer. And I think that makes the board super aesthetically pleasing. And that's some creative things you can do. But at the end of the day, that's not as visually large as a change as something like going from a KBD 75 to an Orange 75 to like the 7Z or like the Satisfaction 75. They're all like different in the way that they look and the way that they achieve the same layout. Whereas 65s are very like, this is what it is. Here you go. Some of them are like, okay, we blocked out the win. You only have the two 1.25 keys on the right side of your spacebar, and then there's the blocker before you get to the arrows. Cool, we've seen that. Obviously, that's being more of the norm rather than having the 3 1U keys before you get to the arrows. But
yeah, I think another big thing for me, though, that kind of on the argument side of 65%, we are starting to see more and more keyboards in the 65% range have PCBs that are available. Second off market, not secondary market, but kind of available to buy at certain places. I know you can get a few of them. You can get a few of the higher end ones. You can use the Zeal 65s. With the center mounted USB, and then you kind of the TDOS 68 PCB, and then the KBD 67 PCB. I think that's the name of it. Those are starting to see aftermarket. So you do have that. It's always nice to have that kind of safety net of, okay, well, I can go buy a PCB, where most of these 75%, if you look at them, there's no way that they're using a standard PCB. A lot of these PCB, Orange 75, perfect example for non-standard PCBs, and if something happens to it, you either have to get it repaired or you're screwed. And you might even, if you didn't, buy a second PCB, you might run into the issue of you now don't have a working board. So you run into those problems, but, that can be addressed and there are a few PCBs. So something like the KBD 65 or 75, you can get a new PCB for that. But that's one thing the 75 to me really struggles at is, because there are so many different unique things you have, unique layouts, you have to have specific PCBs. That also drives the cost up for the group buys. So it's just that. And then on top of all of that, the other thing too is that's what minimum, most boards have escape plus FRO. So that's 13 extra switches. So, I mean, if you're talking Holy Pandas, Zelios, that's an extra $15, $20. So,
yeah. And I think that's huge when you really look at it from, especially if you're trying to buy a board, like a secondary market board, you know, like for me, for instance, perfect example, my Orange 75 had an issue where one of the pads got messed up, and now one of my traces had an issue, and I'm having to get that repaired with a jumper, which still makes it functionally work. But it's not as aesthetically pleasing when you open the board up and you've got wires running from switches to switches. That's not something that everyone will know unless you like show them the bottom of the PCB. But, you know, I'd rather have just the clean PCB work, or have the ability to go and buy a PCB that works. With a 65%, like you said, even though there is variance in them on their bottom rows and the way that they handle the handle the bottom row and handle those blockers and whatnot, PCBs can still support that, just like how we see in 60% PCBs where we have a little bit of Swiss cheese going on in the bottom. You know, having just a little bit's not going to hurt, and it'll make it to where that's more of a standardized layout. Whereas with 75%, like you said, it's basically impossible. Like you couldn't use a 65 or a KBD 75 on literally anything other than a KBD 75 or something that was exactly like that.
Yeah.
Like the Orange 75 is one of the most like one-off PCBs I've seen in a long time. Like,
hands down. The
way that everything is handled. The controller is literally on a block by itself next to the USB. Like there's a square that's not even part of the main PCB where the controller is. Yeah,
it's strange because we're seeing a lot of people switch to daughter boards, which I think kind of helps that. But Orange 75, Fox Labs are like, nah, bro. Let's just make this really strange looking PCB.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's a good way to sell extra PCBs.
It's true. And I will say, if you do buy a 75%, you don't have to buy a second plate, but buying a second PCB is always worth it. Unless the only option is hot swap, then you're not really there. But in that way, if you want to sell it on the secondary market, you can say, I have a clean PCB, so that someone goes in and they say, hey, I don't want your Telios that you've got in there. They can put something else that they want in it. Because not everyone's going to like what you like.
And it's always good to have a backup. True, just in general, I would just say that's a flat statement. If it is a proprietary PCB, get two. Don't even open one of them, like ever. Don't touch it. Just put it in a box, put it in storage somewhere safe and cool, and don't even touch it. And just hope you never need it. But it's a great safety net. So
especially if it's something like some PCBs we're seeing now have like the different artwork on them. Yeah, that's something that's really nice to have, even if it is like a 60% that's like standard, or even a 75 or a 65% that you'd be able to drop something different in at no change. It's cool to have that little artwork there and have it really complete the board. But yeah, 75s definitely they struggle with that. I would say that's their biggest downfall as well, is the lack of support on the secondary market for putting things into them in terms of like plates, PCBs, stuff like that.
Absolutely. So the winner for me personally, I think aesthetically 75% is better, and a lot of functionality. You get more functionality. If you also know me, I hate 65% with a fiery burning passion. And so I think 75 when it comes to aesthetics, and you get the extra functionality of the FRO, hands down. It sucks about the PCB, but if you are going in on a 75% PCB, just get an extra one and you're good.
I respectfully disagree.
I disrespectfully take that disrespectfully.
But moving on, we'll go to 75 versus TKL. I think we might disagree on this one as well.
I'm actually curious to know what you think. What side do you want to take?
I'm going to take 75. I'm going to
Okay, I'll take
pour
TKO.
one out for my
That's fine.
homies.
All right. All right. So we just talked about 75, but with TKLs, it is the outside of a full size or maybe like a 96 key, but TKL is going to be the easiest board to go from I've been typing on a membrane board or a Razor or whatever. That is going to be the easiest board to go from I don't know anything about mechanical keyboards, or I know that my friend told me I should get a Razor or a Logitech or whatever. And so I got this. But now I've seen Nathan Kim build 15 TKLs. And so now I really want a TKL. And that's not a shot at Nathan. He's awesome. He just builds a lot of TKLs.
He does.
But I've seen him do all this, so now I kind of want that, and I don't, these 60% boards, these things, I want my arrows, I want normality. So TKLs to me, when I think TKL, I think maximum functionality outside of not having a numpad, and I think like cleanliness and like classy. Most TKLs to me, if done correctly, are just a classy, almost art piece. And then on top of all of that, I've talked about this a lot. Weight, in this community, weight means premium. A lot of people think a heavier a board means it's premium. And I think a lot of us kind of trick ourselves into thinking that. I am definitely at fault of that. Not that I pick up a light board and go, oh, this is garbage. But like when you pick up something that's heavy, you're like, oh yeah. And I had a KBD 8X Rev Mark 1. They're not really calling it Mark 1, but just the KBD 8X Rev 3, and no weight or anything like that. And it was heavy. It was just a giant chunk of aluminum metal. So on top of that, when you throw a weight in there, it's already going to be 5, 6, 7 pounds. So I just think there's maximum functionality, ease of use of switching into, and they just look clean and classy. The Rama U80 looks amazing. All the TGR, the Jane V1s and V2s, Key Colt number 1s, those are all some of the best looking boards because they're kind of that classy look.
All right. So
let's get woke.
How are you like, I get the like classiness of it, but it's like they're all the same. Like it from a layout perspective and the actual board, they are all the same. They all have a whole bunch of weight that like they have a whole bunch of metal that serves no purpose and is just wasted space for no reason. There's not a whole lot of creativity in the actual like way the keys are positioned. Yes, I agree it is classy and there's some very nuanced things that differentiate things like a TGR and a Key Colt board versus like a KBD 8X Mark II and things like that. Like there's some very high-end things that you can do with TKLs, but you can't deny the cool factor of having the 75%, having all these different little changes to the layout itself, changing the way that it looks, the way that it functions, just from the actual layout. Like there's so much more play in the 75% market right now. There's so much you can do with it. There's so much space you have to deal with, which is funny because you have more space on a TKL, but there's like a standard and everyone's like, no, this is how it should be. Like, I feel like the TKL is like the Suits of the world, where it's like, it has to be black, navy, or dark gray. And that's it. Whereas like the 75% is like a guy coming in with he's got like
a salmon colored
suit. He's got like a salmon colored suit. He's wearing like a linen shirt. Like it's all wrinkly. He's wearing the pants that aren't long enough so he can show his ankles, but he's wearing the like boat shoes with no socks. Like coming in looking straight out of LA. Whereas the TKL is the old timey that's like, no, this is how it should be. This is the classic. And I agree with you. It's easy to cove. It's easy to go from, a full size board. If you're someone if you're coming from like Corsair, Razor, Ducky, something like that, and it's full size, it's easy to go to TKL. But my gosh, do they not look as cool or as good as 75? They don't.
Honestly, I mean, I don't have much to argue with. I like 75% more than TKLs. I like TKLs. I have one coming. I did get the KBD 8X Mark II because I wanted a kind of a bigger board for work. I use a lot of different programs that can benefit from it. And at work, I'm not gaming, so I don't care about desk space at work. Although I don't really have that large of a desk at work. But I don't need, maximum efficiency on my desk there. Yeah, I'd say, I mean, I can't argue on that because at least to me personally, you do get a few more keys on the TKL. You do get, probably like three or four more keys. But end of the day, I mean,
how often are you using pause break and insert? Like, let's be real. Half the time people don't even know what those keys do. And if you use pause break a ton,
let us know.
Let us know in the comments. I need to know why and what you do with pause break.
I think good things about the TKL, it shows off novelties. So when you have a set like GMK Camping, it comes with 9 novelty keys. Well, 9 row 1 novelty keys. So you run into, you get to show off key sets kind of to their fullest on the TKL. I'm not to their exact fullest because of a full size, but you get to show off the entire key set. Lots of room for artisans. So people in that community you can use that pause break row that no one uses. Set up yourself some macros, get yourself some cool artisans, show that off. So there are some more benefits to the TKL. You can kind of, and that having that like section kind of makes it look cool to where you can go, okay, I have my key set, and then over here I've got my little artisan section that I can, mess around with over there. So I definitely get that. There's nothing, I definitely understand that aspect of wanting something a little bit, you could do if you had a U80, make yourself a little switch tester.
Yeah, there you go.
Take that cluster, that page up, page down, delete cluster. I don't actually know if there's a name for that cluster. I'm sure there's.
I don't know.
We all know that. Make it fun. Make it a little switch tester. Screw it. Put the box navy in there for once. I used to put a box navy in all my escape keys.
But the other thing that you didn't talk about with keycap sets is the general support for TKL. You can use really anything because there's no specialty keys. Unless you're like doing things that are probably not normal, like split backspace or like changing your bottom row all funky.
Yeah, because outside there are really 2. There's Win keyless and Windows key. So Win keyless, you're going to run into a few issues with the 1.5 mod, Control and Alt mods, and then the 7U spacebar. But if you get a standard Win key, there's not a lot of key sets that don't support TKL. Most key sets support TKL first, and then everything else kind of falls into place. You might be stuck if you don't want to use the short right shift, you might be using that. With my TKL coming in, I think I might actually go with the long right shift, just because I don't really I use it for macros, but I'll probably just program macros at the top right, because I don't use pause break. So, but just something fun. But you are very limited on layouts, and I personally like TKL. The only reason I don't have a 75% is because too many cool 60% boards have come out. and 75% are usually on the heavier priced size, like what we talked about with the PCBs and all of that. But end of the day, I'm choosing 75 over a TKL.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. 75. I have 75. I love it. It's great.
I had one until I screwed up the PCB. But no, I think that will be something that I might down the road look into getting one. But really, I haven't seen a layout that I've outside of the Xeno maybe, but I didn't want to pay the Xeno price. There just hasn't been.
I don't like the Xeno Afro. It bothers me.
I like it. So moving on, this is an argument that can be shared beyond mechanical keyboards or custom mechanical keyboards, which is TKL versus full size.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take full size on this one. I'm gonna take that side.
That's a hard one to take.
So when I say full size, we're either going to encompass an actual full size where you basically it's a 10K, a 10 keyless with the 10 key, or a 96 key, kind of like the Kira from Kono, where it's all kind of smushed together, but you get the number row. So if you're already getting a huge board, like the TKL is a big board. So you're already not caring at all about desk space, most likely. Therefore, or I mean, if you just get a trackball, don't have to worry at all about desk space. But the 10 key is something that is very extremely useful, like in the business world. Not even business, just the work world. If you're dealing with numbers a lot, that's a fantastic thing. Like, this is a quick side note. Osiris and I used to work at Guitar Center. Could you imagine doing Guitar Center without a 10 key?
No, I would need.
No.
I would need a numpad.
You would need a 10. Everyone would need a 10 key, or you wouldn't be able to enter in all. We had to do all these passwords. And
everything was number based. The entire system was number based. Like every function had a number assigned to it, and it was all combinations.
Yeah. Every keyboard at that store, the number pad row was like wiped clean, and the rest of the keyboard looked pristine.
Yeah.
So in the work world, in a businessy kind of world, especially if you're doing numbers, that extra numpad is crucial. And then on top of all of that, you get extra added benefit to key sets that are being released with the numpad kit. I just bought like my 5th numpad kit today because Peaches and Cream. I bought Peaches and Cream today. But you should go buy Peaches and Cream if you like that key set. But I'm going to have a numpad, but it's like even that extra enter key, if you're using like accent keys, that really just kind of brings the whole thing together. And I think layouts like the TXCP are great. Layouts like the Austin, if you haven't seen it, the Austin, our buddy in the Discord, Drifting Bunnies, is releasing the Austin. So there's just a lot of, you kind of, with the full size, you start to see that, not to the fullest extent of 75%, but you're starting to see that wiggle room of kind of play with the layout. So.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but unless you're like an accountant or something, or you have a job that's like very niche where you absolutely 1000% need the keypad, the numpad, you don't need it. You think you do, but you don't. And I'm going to cheat here.
Ooh.
You can buy a TKL, and then if you're like, hey, I need my numpad, you can just buy a numpad, and it'll, then you're good. Then you're set. You got like the percent. They came out with the booster. The Orange 75 had the orange pad. The KBD 8X Mark II has the KBD 8X pad thing that I can't remember what it's called right now.
I think it's just called the KBD pad Mark II.
Yeah, the KBD pad Mark II.
Yeah, there's a TX pad.
There's a TX pad. There's
that
even
like
that
5 people own.
Well, and then there's the super cool Ducky one that's a calculator and a numpad that you can plug into your computer. So all I'm saying is you don't need the numpad. Go TKL, get yourself a Jane because you've got thousands of dollars, or a Key Cult number 2. And
everyone that listens to us is just rich.
Be that fancy guy in your super fancy suit, rocking the classy TKL. You don't need the extra keys. I mean, half the time, again, we'll get back on it. Do you know what scroll lock does? Do you know? Does it matter what if you have numlock on or not? Do you need to know that? Probably not.
I mean, numlock, I think of all of those as the only one that's important.
Yeah, it is. well, caps lock, but caps lock, most TKLs still retain the caps lock.
Dude, even if I had a TKL, when I get a TKL, my caps lock's still going to be mapped to the second layer. No, probably not. I'm going split backspace on my TKL though.
Are you?
I am.
What are you going to do with your what would be the tilde key normally?
I'm going to double escape it.
You're going to double escape? You're going to be escape?
We're going to get extra escapee up in here.
It's like a double negative. It just stays put. There's no escaping happening.
Nope. It's just, I might not even map anything to the actual escape. It'll just be a button. It'll just be like a box navy. I'm just I'm bored.
But yeah, I don't full size. It's just hard to justify. You know, I know you said, oh, you don't worry about desk space, but there's a huge difference between a TKL and a full size board in terms of size.
And it comes to the full size, but the 96 key, there isn't as much because
there's
it is cramped.
As much, but it's also like exactly what you just said, cramped, and it looks not as aesthetically pleasing.
See, I will disagree. I think the CP layout is one of the coolest looking layouts. The TX CP, the Austin, and the HB CP are awesome.
They do look great. I'll give you that.
When you have that full, but I will say, and this is kind of an argument that could be made versus like the 96 key versus the full size. You are min-maxing your space, but you get that extra, like, to me, whenever it's that custom, that reminds me that I'm in a custom keyboard community, where the TKL doesn't remind me that I'm in the custom keyboard community. So now you pick it up, and yeah, you very quickly remember that you are in this community because they all weigh like 900 pounds, but that those neat layouts at like 96% are just it just looks so clean. And having, you know, a big part of a reason I love it is this is the reason, you know, GMK camping. Like, they have all those novelty keys. You can show off the novelties. The set gets showed off. Looks beautiful. I'm going full size in parentheses CP layout.
Like the 1800/CP. Yeah. I feel you. Those look good.
That is my choice on this one.
Yeah. I don't like full size, but I like those layouts. So I'll say only those layouts. The like,
you don't want a TX 108.
No, I don't.
Where you pay the same in shipping as it does to ship a tofu. So
it's just so much space that's not useful. It's like
at least it weighs 10 pounds.
We talked about 60 versus 40 when you're talking about like min-maxing. This is like almost the same idea of like, but in terms of it makes more sense because you don't use those keys like ever.
What was it? Is it the elephant? Was that what it's called?
Which one?
It's like a 65%. It's got like giant.
Oh yeah. There was the accent as well.
Okay.
Yeah. The EXENT, which is like 65%, but the
bezels.
The bezels were like the size of making it like a TKL or a full size almost. Hey, uniqueness.
So moving on. Moving on.
The final.
Let me tell you why 65% is everything that's wrong with this community.
So this is 60 versus 65.
So
take that from Chewy's comment.
This is why I don't like it. One, use layers.
Okay.
Everyone freaks out because, oh, I need an arrow key. No, you don't. Same way, oh, I need a numpad. No, you don't. Numbers are right there. Oh, I need arrows. No, you don't. Just click. Just click. Use your arrows. I use caps lock as the function layer. WASD. Arrows right there. Boom. People also use the Vim arrows. If you're gonna freak out because of 4 keys, then buy a full size keyboard or buy a TKL. If you're so worried about arrow keys and page up, page down, that's what scroll wheels are for. Delete key. Guess what? I can, and the time it takes you to reach across the board and hit the delete key or the tilde key or whatever you have on it, I have already hit delete 4 times with caps lock escape. There is no reason. It looks asymmetrical. There are not as many PCBs that are supported. There's no layout that is more supported than 60%. Fight me.
No way. That's not fair. Full size. It's there. Fought.
There is no more. There are so many 60% PCBs. There are so many options. If you want to get in the community, you can go as low as a tofu. Don't even get me started with that Tada BS, because I know that's going to be one of your arguments. But it's asymmetrical. You don't need that extra row. That's an extra inch of space. I know we're talking about an inch of space, but if you're trying to min-max 60%, it looks clean. It looks symmetrical. IMO, because I can't make a objective statement. Subjectively, 60% is better.
So I love 65%. It's the first board I ever got in this community was a 65% board. Chewy's first board was a 65% board. Your caps lock delete thing is moot if you are someone who has to use the caps lock key fairly regularly. If you're working, 65% boards are incredible. The ability of having backspace and delete is very useful, as well as the arrow keys in programs like Excel and Word and other things. That function layer doesn't work as well. It just does not function as nicely as having those dedicated keys there. You know, sometimes you're in the middle of typing something, you just want to move down a row. Now I got to stop everything I'm doing. I got to move my fingers over, hit caps lock, and then hit W again. Now I got to get back to the home keys, whereas I can just move one hand, type down, and then I'm back. There's just, you're talking about min-maxing, but you don't need to. You've got all the keys you need on the 65%. Sometimes you need page up, page down. When you're scrolling through a PDF, page up, page down is awesome. I don't like to use scroll wheels, because frankly, scroll wheels on Zowie mice suck. And page up, page down is great.
I'm sorry, were you talking?
You can hear me the whole time. You've got headphones on. Listen, no. Unless you're doing, the only way 60% can compete, in my opinion, is if you're doing split backspace on a 60%, because then you can map a key to delete. I have tried to do the function layer delete thing. It just doesn't work. It's just super inefficient. I'm editing contracts all day at work. Function delete doesn't work. I need my delete key. I need my backspace key. I can keep my fingers on those keys. Because sometimes in Word, sometimes in Excel, things get weird. Backspace doesn't work, but delete does.
It's okay to be wrong.
I mean, it's not wrong.
No, I hear your arguments, but here's counter argument. So delete, yes, is an important key. I concede to the fact that delete is important, but if you're going split backspace, you can add that delete key. You can move the tilde over and you can throw in a delete key, or you can get rid of the pipe key, because honestly, not a whole lot of people use the pipe key on day-to-day usage. But the other great thing about 60%, if you need an arrow row, and I understand you lose the question mark because I tried it and I hated it, but you can use an arrow cluster on a 60%. You do lose one extra key. Maybe you can map it somewhere else. So a lot of people, honestly, I don't use my right shift that often.
It's because you're right-handed.
So left shift for days,
I use both.
Don't use it, but I think I use it whenever I'm trying to page break in like Discord or something, because if you hit enter, then it goes. So hold on, I'm setting my camera. Hopefully that doesn't mess it up. But sorry, what were you going to say?
Personally, I'm left-handed. I use my right shift quite often. I also type with my key, like the way that you're technically supposed to type, where your fingers stay home on F and J. And so I use when I'm
what is typing correctly?
When I'm using when I'm capitalizing anything that I would use my left hand for, I use right shift, and when right hand, and vice versa. So I do that. So having that there, that is a necessity of having the shift key there, and having the number row on a 60%. To me, looks, you want to talk about asymmetrical and looking dumb. Sorry if anyone uses that layout and they love it. You do you, but personally, I think that does not look good at all. I understand your point of the extra row, like even here. So I have my Tada 68, and this one's kind of interesting. So this was all linears, but this is like my gaming board before, and I put different switches on the mod switches, except for shift for some reason.
And that shift for even double reason.
Yeah, this shift. But I get what you're saying about how it looks, but it still looks cool. You have the ability, you have a nice little row there. Talk about artisans. You could put artisans all down that row.
That's fair.
You can still use it. There's a lot more variance in the cases and the way that they look and the design of the cases. There's a lot more freedom. You've got things like the clue board looks different from an M65. Even the M65 looks different from the KOU. The Bauer looks different than everything else. There's a lot of variance there. Whereas everything on a 60%, it's pretty much all just slab of keys surrounded by case. And that's it.
No, you got one keyless in HHKB.
Okay, cool. You put.
I'm not going to argue for HHKB because I, as much as I love the way it looks, I honestly don't think there's a better. The two nicest looking layouts and keyboards to me are an HHKB 60% and a 10 keyless with a Win keyless 10 keyless board. This is an argument that I have to refrain myself from cursing because I just personally, so yes, I did own a Tada, and I owned a Zephyr.
You
so
did.
I've owned two 65%, but the reason I sold the Tada was because I got something nicer. And the reason that I sold the Zephyr is because, well, two reasons. One, I didn't like the thick plate, and two, I just found myself going, this is a really nice board, but I'd rather have a 60%. I found myself not using the arrow keys like ever. I just was so used to Anthony, 001 Anthony, shout out to him, showed me the layout the caps lock function key. And I've been using that ever since. And so I guess thank you to him for showing me that. These are all very personal. If you get a 65%, I'm not going to hate you. I think that there are some very, I'm sorry. That was not, we're recording, but Twitch just alerted me that someone did something on our Twitch channel.
Yeah. I was like, so someone just followed us on Twitch and I saw it on my activity feed that I have on OBS. And I looked over and I was like, please don't say I have alerts on right now. And I don't. So
well,
it's nice.
Whoever
Thank you for the follow.
Who is it?
It seems like it's a weird way to spell cliche.
There you go.
KILCH.
Thanks for the follow.
Yeah, thanks for the follow. We appreciate it. But no, I think we could probably go on forever with minute details between 60 and 65% that don't really actually matter.
It's all preference. We've stated from day one of us doing Mechs on Deck, it's all preference. My preference is that I don't like 65%. But you might think, hey, this is the best way for me to get into a small form factor, but I can't live without arrow keys. That's totally fine. I get that. At the beginning of my rant, I just said you don't have to just use arrow keys. Like I don't actually think less of people, more just to get under the skin of Osiris and our mod Moon, who both love the 65%. So it's just a fun conversation. But I would recommend, if you have the ability, try a lot of them. Try as many as you can. Go to a meetup, try them all, find out yours. Let us know what your top 3 layouts are. Let us know what you think of those 5 in the comments. Let us know what you would think. So
yeah,
but that'll wrap it up. But we got some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, we do. We have some exciting thing coming up in the next couple weeks. This Wednesday or tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central, we will have Mentorly on the show. She's the designer of SA Bliss, which is running right now, which you can head on over to our brand new sponsor, Dixie Mech. Link is in the description. Please consider using our affiliate link if you are looking to purchase SA Bliss or anything from Dixie Mech. Helps us out a little bit. You get cool caps. We get some help. Keeps the show running. Allows us to get cool stuff. We love you. You might love us. I don't know.
Roll Tide.
Sure, roll Tide. I'll say it there. But no, we appreciate Dixie. We had him on the show last week, but we're excited to get Mentorly on to talk a little bit about the design of SA Bliss and figure out why she decided to do row 3 spherical flat, because I wanted the key set, but then I don't want the key set.
It happens. So we've also got, we should in the next week have 001 Anthony on the show. He's going to come over. We're probably going to do a IRL video like we did a few months back. We'll get him over. We're going to hang out, talk keyboards, talk building keyboards, and being kind of just in the community, being a streamer in the community. So very excited for that. But yes, I'll start us off by reiterating Dixie, our newest sponsor. Thank you. Link is in the bio. Consider bookmarking it. So every time you need to go to Dixie, you click that bookmark. It helps us, gives us a nice little kickback, helps us run the show. So I need to get a sticker from Dixie for my Mechs on mug.
Yeah. You can also use, you can go to switchmod.net/mechsondeck and get some lube, some 3203, 3204, and 205 grade 0. You can also get some cool little keycaps and some stickers from Krellbit. I believe GMK 17 different colors is still running, but it did hit MOQ. They are donating some of the proceeds of that to a good cause, I believe to fight autism, if that's correct. correct me in the comments, but I think that, but they are donating some of the proceeds of that to charity. So if you're interested in that, if you want a set that looks like a child's toy, get it. It's actually really cool. We meme on it a little bit, but it is a pretty cool looking set. And it definitely has its place in the community. And then last but not least, Zap Cables.
Yeah, Zap Cables. Great, good friend of ours. He makes fantastic cables that can be used for many things. So Zap Cables, head on over if you want to. He's opening up more and more spots that you're going to be able to get custom cables done. So if you want something fancy, with like the coils and everything, and just fancy coloring, kind of matches the key set. Go check it out. If you can't get in on one of those runs, got a DIY, grab yourself a DIY kit. Check our YouTube video. We kind of walk through where we are able to build this cable slowly but surely. Build a cable, so you can check that out. But Zap Cables, link in the bio. Definitely go support him. They are some wonderful people. So,
absolutely. And then, follow us on Twitch. Like I said, we're streaming tomorrow night with Mentorly talking about keycap designers. Join the Discord if you want to ask some questions. Discord will be in the chat. There's a channel in there where you can ask your questions and we can go and ask Mentorly, or even in the future weeks for designers if you have general questions. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow night. And, as usual, buy a Switch tester.
Bye now.